All of those girls on TikTok talking about how men take shrooms and discover compassion, they would love this book. She's an icon.
I'm exuding these pheromones. Oof, women just love me.
We can't have nice things here. We can't have nice things. Anyways.
This is a horror book. This is scary. Wow. Oh my gosh. I can't believe that I get to live in an era where we have the bell jar and a Court of Thorns and Roses. He is unscrupulous and he is like, yeah, we'll just cure him by making him an alcoholic. She's funny. Okay, next chapter.
Hi. Hello. Welcome to a reading vlog brought to you by Marzi Starzy. That's an internet pseudonym made for bookish content creation. Today, we are going to be exploring tragic literary figures, Osuma Dazai and Sylvia Plath, in an attempt to better understand the internet cults and personalities that have formed around them. Both Dazai and Plath are two people that just pop up on my TikTok For You page all the time. Everyone always wants to say, I was written by this. And I've seen people say that they were written by Osuma Dazai, and then I've seen some girls say that they were written by Sylvia Plath. So I just want to know. I just want to know what all that is about. Before we go any further, we need to put a trigger warning in this video. The themes and topics explored in this video and books will be very heavy. All of them are going to deal with depressive thoughts and feelings, suicidal thoughts and actions, SA, violence, misogyny, substance abuse. Listen, it's all going to be there. So please take care of yourself and don't watch this video if you feel like any of these topics will spiral you or hurt you in any way, okay? You deserve to take care of yourself. As much as I would love it if you watch this video, take care of yourself first. I have other things out there that you could watch. So from my perception, both Dazai and Plath seem similar. They're both tragic literary icons who wrote semi-autobiographical works and suffered from mental illness before taking their own lives, and this like modern mythos and urban legend of them kind of lives on. Dazai is from Japan. He's a man. He's in a post-World War world. I really just know about that Bungo of the Stray Dogs character named after him. I haven't even seen the anime. I've just seen a bunch of edits on TikTok. And then Plath is a female poet from America who was writing during the 50s. She's associated with being a housewife. I know about the fig tree quote that's very popular on TikTok. And I know that she wrote The Bell Jar. These are the 4 books that I'll be reading for this vlog. The first book I'll be reading is No Longer Human by Osuma Dazai from Storygraph, this description. Portraying himself as a failure, the protagonist of Osuma Dazai's No Longer Human narrates a seemingly normal life even while he feels himself incapable of understanding human beings. Oba Yozo's attempts to reconcile himself to the world around him begin in early childhood, continue through high school where he becomes a clown to mask his alienation, and eventually lead to a failed suicide attempt as an adult. Without sentimentality, he records the casual cruelties of life and its fleeting moments of human connection and tenderness. The next book I'll be reading is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, also from Storygraph. A woman falling into the grip of insanity. Esther Greenwood is brilliant, beautiful, enormously talented, and successful, but slowly going under, maybe for the last time. In her acclaimed and enduring masterpiece, Sylvia Plath brilliantly draws the reader into Esther's breakdown with such intensity that her insanity becomes palpably real, even rational. As accessible an experience as going to the movies. A deep penetration into the darkest and most harrowing corners of the human psyche. The Bell Jar is an extraordinary accomplishment and a haunting American classic. After that, I'll be reading Ariel, the Restored Edition by Sylvia Plath. It's a collection of poems left by Sylvia Plath following her untimely death by suicide. This is the Restored Edition, meaning that these works will be presented how Sylvia Plath intended them to be presented. The last book I'll be reading is The Setting Sun by Osuma Dazai. This description is also from Storygraph. Osuma Dazai died a suicide in 1948, but the influence of his book has made People of the Setting Sun a permanent part of Japanese language, and his heroine Kazuko, a young aristocrat who deliberately abandons her class, a symbol of the enomi, which pervades so much of the modern world. I'll put the definition of that word on the screen. Okay, sorry, I have to read this out loud. Some Japanese of late have taken to referring to themselves as the orphans of Asia, indicating and perhaps lamenting the fact that although Japan has become isolated from the rest of Asia, the Western nations do not accept her literature or learning as a part of their own. The Japanese writers of today are cut off from the Asian literature as completely as the United States is from Latin American literature by the conviction that there is nothing to learn.
Okay, so I just finished the prologue and pretty good. I'm pretty sucked in already.
An actor dreads most the audience in his hometown. I imagine the greatest actor in the world would be quite paralyzed in a room where all his family and relatives were gathered to watch him. But I had learned to play my part. This book is a call-out. Someone seeing through the clownery. I brooded over what I should do. I would devote the hours spent with him to persuading him that my antics were not on purpose, but a genuine article. If things went well, I would like to become his inseparable friend, but if this proved utterly impossible, I had no choice but to pray for his death. Women sleep so soundly they seem to be dead. Who knows? Women may live in order to sleep. Okay, so he doesn't like women, I get it. He's taken up painting. He's doing self-portraits. I soon came to understand that drink, tobacco, and prostitutes were all excellent means of dissipating, even for a few moments, my dread of human beings. I came even to feel that if I had to sell every last possession to obtain these means of escape, it would be well worth it. Pretty sure someone I know has made a couple of YouTube videos on this. Can't wait to watch them and understand what they're saying. This part where he's talking about being a lady killer is giving very much the oxygen thief. He's like, I can't help it. I'm exuding these pheromones. Oh, women just love me. So he doesn't like women. I feel some type of way about men who don't like women. I'm sorry, you have to listen to this. She rambled on, but I have never been able to get interested when women talk about themselves. It may be because women are so inept at telling a story. That is, because they place the emphasis in the wrong places, or for some other reason. In any case, I have always turned them a deaf ear. Suddenly this book is inciting female rage in me.
Okay, a quick update before I start my rehearsal. I didn't have misogyny on my bingo board for this video. So I just finished Notebook 2, and he was going to, him and his lover were going to jump off a bridge together, and they did, and she has passed away, and he did not. He talks about everything in such a detached way. Yeah. Complex feelings and emotions. I just wasn't expecting to be, like, upset by any of these books in a way that I was like, really? I don't know, really? Gosh, do you see the tear? It's getting sad. It's been sad. But this girl's like, you need to stop drinking, and he's like, tell me something I don't know. And she's like, here, use this medicine to stop drinking. What's the medicine? Morphine. Well, this took an Anna Karenina kind of turn. I'm done. Ugh. It's so hot outside. It's literally 100 degrees out today. We can't have nice things here. We can't have nice things. Anyways, I'm sweating. I'm not sure what I thought this book was going to be about. And I'm realizing now that my perception of it was definitely colored by how I had seen other people talk about it on social media. I hadn't necessarily seen people talk about what this book was about or even quotes from it.
but basically just how it made them feel or how it aligned with whatever aesthetic they themselves subscribe to. For example, I saw a girl say that she feels like she was written by Osuma Dazai. I disagree. I'm not trying to slander that girl. I'm not trying to roast her. I'm not. I think what really caused my disengagement from this read was the misogyny in it. You know, I mean, he just had so many things about how women are boring, and I just really couldn't get behind that. And I was kind of shocked to see it as well. I don't know. But I don't think the character or the narrator really wanted my sympathy as a reader. And then that kind of led me to the curiosity of like why this story in particular was being told. I am sort of landing on this feeling that I missed a big part of this book. I was curious as to if my disconnect with this book had something to do with the translation. It seems like there's only 2 big translations out there. So this one's No Longer Human, translated by Donald Keene, but then there's A Shameful Life by Mark Gibeau. I just feel like I'm missing a lot of this story, and I personally feel like it is in part due to the translation. Maybe that's wannabe highbrow of me to say, but that's how I feel. Anyways, moving on to the bell jar. I'm so excited. I've actually already started. The foreword was really good. It really set the scene for how the world was excited for Sylvia Plath's book, and she had already passed away, and like it had already been published in the UK, but it hadn't been published in America. I'm already picking up on some things.
The only thing I could think was turkey neck and turkey gizzards, and I felt very depressed. Okay, so here's the thing about me, and that's that I've discovered that the audio is really bad on the Dazai portion of this, and probably some of the bell jar. But it's gonna be okay because I'm just gonna tiny mic it. We're gonna be good. I did think this was a little funny. Okay, so I have the bell jar, right? And I also have my little Starbucks latte. And tell me that this is not a canon event. Right? Like she exists. She exists at your local Starbucks, and she's experiencing things. Anyways, how far am I into the bell jar right now? It's been a couple of days. I just haven't had much time to read. But either way, we're on page 81. I'm really planning on finishing this up today. I think I can do it. I'm excited. Okay, we're about to get a little too feminist in this video, if you couldn't tell. I mean, by my reactions to No Longer Human, but listen to this. There was no 100% sure way not to have a baby. It said in an article my mother cut out of the Reader's Digest and mailed to me at college. This article was written by a married woman lawyer with children and called In Defense of Chastity. It gave all the reasons a girl shouldn't sleep with anybody but her husband, and then only after they were married. The point of the article was that a man's world is different from a woman's world, and a man's emotions are different from a woman's emotions, and only marriage can bring the two worlds and the two different sets of emotions together properly. My mother said this was something a girl didn't know about till it was too late, so she had to take the advice of people who were already experts, like a married woman. This woman lawyer said the best men wanted to be pure for their wives, even if they weren't pure. They wanted to be the ones to teach their wives about sex. Of course, they would try to persuade a girl to have sex, and they would say they would marry her later, but as soon as she gave in, they would lose all respect for her and start saying that if she did that with them, she would do that with other men, and they would end up by making her life miserable. The woman finished her article by saying, better safe than sorry, and besides, there was no sure way of not getting stuck with a baby, and then you'd really be in a pickle. Now, the one thing this article didn't seem to me to consider was how a girl felt. It might be nice to be pure, and then to marry a pure man, but what if he suddenly confessed he wasn't pure after we were married, the way Buddy Willard did? I couldn't stand the idea of a woman having to have a single pure life and a man being able to have a double life, one pure and one not. Finally, I decided that if it was so difficult to find a red-blooded, intelligent man who was still pure by the time he was 21, I might as well forget about staying pure myself and marry somebody who wasn't pure either. Then, when he started to make my life miserable, I could make his miserable as well. She's funny. She's funny. That's what I have to say, okay? I think she's really funny. Maybe I shouldn't give any thoughts on that. But I think the fact that I decided to share it says enough about me. So there were times when I was reading No Longer Human where I would think, Man, I relate to what he said. Specifically the clown stuff that he would say, I just really related to that. Filming a reading vlog here, geez. But when I read The Bell Jar, she just says things that I get it, and things that I have verbatim said. When she, at the very beginning of this book, she talks about how her friend is flirting with this guy, and the guy has a short friend, but she's a tall girl, so she pays him no mind. I'm 5'9", okay? And at one point, her friend's like, oh, like, my guy can get you a boy too. And she's basically like, don't bring another friend unless he's taller than me. That is just so iconic because I get it, I'm 5'9", and sometimes it can be a real issue. Anyways, I just want to talk about that she has to say, which is, I wondered if as soon as he came to like me, he would sink into ordinaries, and if as soon as he came to love me, I would find fault after fault. The same thing happened over and over. I would catch sight of some flawless man in the distance, but as soon as he moved closer, I immediately saw he wouldn't do it all. She just like me for real. I want to be friends with this girl. She's an icon. What a man secretly wanted when the wedding service ended was for his wife to flatten out underneath his feet. Icon. I also remember Buddy Willard saying in a sinister, knowing way that after I had children, I would feel differently. I wouldn't want to write poems anymore. This is a horror book. This is scary. This is much scarier than, what was that horror story I read earlier? Things have gotten worse since we last spoke. I can't believe that I get to live in an era where we have the bell jar and a court of thorns and roses. I was truly born in the right era. All of those girls on TikTok talking about how men take shrooms and discover compassion, they would love this book. This is a hilarious book. I hate Buddy. So Esther's a little racist. By a little, I do mean a lot. Like, she just will say things about people of different ethnicities and how they look, and maybe we wouldn't be friends because I don't like that stuff, Direct quote from page 117. Children made me sick. Iconic. I think that this book is really funny. Oh no, this is like on my way to being one of my favorite reads all year. Esther is sitting down. Okay, Esther, our main character, is sitting down to write her novel, and she says, my heroine would be myself, only in disguise. She would be called Elaine. Elaine, I counted the letters on my fingers. There were 6 letters in Esther too. It seemed a lucky thing. Sylvia has 3 letters. She just straight up told us that this is a book about her. Have you guys seen that TikTok where the girl explains Mademoiselle magazine and how Sylvia Plath was one of the people to do it?
Someone once said that Mademoiselle treated young women as if they had brains, hearts, and enough good sense not to pair stripes with plaids. Mademoiselle ran a competition where the most talented college girls in the country competed for one of 20 guest editor spots. These young women would spend the summer in Manhattan working for the magazine and living in the Barbizon, a famous all-women's hotel. The history of the Barbizon is a rabbit hole of its own. Probably the most famous guest editor of all time was Sylvia Plath. Her seminal novel, The Bell Jar, was inspired by her summer at the magazine.
Oh no, I love this book. I wish I could cross out all the racist parts though. Because it's like, when you read that, it just takes me out. I'm like, oh, come on, really? This book does speak to me though, in that like super, white bread America, white girl way, You've heard of the fig tree quote?
I saw my life branching out before me like the green fig tree in the storm. From the tip of every branch, a wonderful future beckoned. One fig was a husband and a happy home, children, and another fig was a famous poet, and another fig was a brilliant professor. And beyond and above these figs were many more figs I couldn't quite make out. I saw myself sitting in the crotch of this fig tree, starving to death, just because I couldn't make up my mind which of the figs I would choose.
Well, here's part 2 of the fig tree quote, okay? I thought I would spend the summer reading Finnegan's Wake and writing my thesis. Then I would be way ahead when college started at the end of September, and able to enjoy my last year instead of swatting away with no makeup and stringy hair on a diet of coffee and Benzedrine, the way most of the seniors taking honors did until they finished their thesis. Then I thought I might put off college for a year and apprentice myself to a pottery maker, or work my way to Germany and be a waitress until I was bilingual. Then plan after plan started leaping through my head like a family of scatty rabbits. I saw the years of my life spaced along a road in the form of telephone poles threaded together by wires. I counted 1, 2, 3, 19 telephone poles, and then the wires dangled into space, and try as I would, I couldn't see a single pole beyond the 19th. The room blued into view, and I wondered where the night had gone. Do you like that? Do you like the way that Sylvia Plath brought up the fig tree, right? And she established that metaphor and made it very clear, and it stuck with us, okay? It stuck with us in our heads. And then later on, she's not straight out referencing the fig tree, but we get it, okay? She's introduced the concept and we get it. What a smart lady. What a smart author. I love this book. I don't like her therapist. Now maybe that's naive of me to say, right? What do I know? But I don't like this therapist. I don't think electroshock therapy is the immediate thing we should have gone to. Again, I don't like this therapist. I did it! I made it to the part of the book where they say the title in a sentence. I would be sitting under the same glass bell jar stewing in my own sour air. I did it. I kind of love it when they do that, you know? When books say their title. She has a female psychiatrist now, and that female psychiatrist is like, yeah, that old doctor sucked. I love women. When I say that Esther is iconic, I was speaking to some of the phrases she would say that I related to, you know, about how she's a tall girl and she would wish that her friend would take that into consideration and only bring along tall men for her. You know, I get that. Or how she was funny sometimes. Like, it was funny to me, right? Like, because she's not into Buddy, and he was like, marry me. And she was like, no. And he's like, you'll change your mind. We can fly together. And she's like, oh, no. That to me is icon behavior. It's not iconic to want to S-word yourself. Not iconic at all. I don't want to romanticize mental illness here. I just use humor to cope. So I just want to make that very clear, okay? Maybe it's a good thing I don't have a lot of people watching me on YouTube because I'm not very well spoken, and I'm in hindsight, maybe doing a reading vlog of tragic literature was not the best choice for me. But I'm happy I read these books. Well, I just finished. I wasn't expecting it to end that way. I don't think I can necessarily wholly discuss the ending. It's very odd that I've lived my whole life and I knew certain aspects of this book, but I did not know the ending at all. I don't know why it's such a shock to me, but I finished the book finally. I would like you to know that I did watch a couple YouTube videos on how to read poetry before I started this book, before I started Ariel, because I wanted to make sure that I don't want to say I was doing it right, but you know, sometimes poems are short, and I'm like, did I read that too fast? But yeah. Ooh, this is so exciting. You get so much depth to what she's talking about in voice. Very, very different from the bell jar. Tulips. The tulips are too excitable. It is winter here. Look how white everything is, how quiet, how snowed in.
I am learning peacefulness lying by myself quietly. As the light lies on these white walls, this bed, these hands, I am nobody. I have nothing to do with explosions. I have given my name and my day clothes up to the nurses, and my history to the anesthesists, and my body to surgeons. They have propped my head between the pillow and the sheet cuff, like an eye between two white lids that will not shut. Stupid pupil, it has to take everything in. That's only like the first couple lines of the poem, but isn't that good? Just that image of an eyeball that won't shut because it has to take everything in. That's good.
Ariel is done. Wow. Oh my gosh. She's raw. But also she will just find the perfect amount of words and then she'll just say something racist, you know? And I'm like, Sylvia, don't do that. I need to just go ahead and say, like, these books are a product of their time. So I can't really fully judge these authors for the beliefs that they had. But I know that I'm not going to parrot them, if you know what I'm saying. And I don't need to really be promoting that kind of ideology. I hope that makes sense. Ooh. This was so good. Oh my gosh. I thought the way that the final poems were collected, being about bees and how her father was a beekeeper, it was such a beautiful full circle way of ending it. I can't help. Even though I had passed this poem, I couldn't help but go back to Jailer. Something about it. And then as I learned more about her life and the people around her, I just couldn't help but go back to that poem. That's the one that's really stuck out to me right now. I know that Lady Lazarus is the most famous poem. I felt, you know, she chose a very extreme, she chose the Holocaust to further the comparisons and feelings that she was making in it. And knowing that I believe is her final poem before she passed away, yeah, it makes sense why she chose it. Who am I to really question the work of a dead artist, you know? Okay, very briefly, actually, let me tell you what I've learned about Sylvia Plath's history. Okay, so she meets a British poet, Ted Hughes. She is working as a professor. They have 2 kids. She's like, I don't have time to focus on my poetry, so they move to England. He starts an affair. She finds out. She is living in a house with their 2 kids. In her poetry, it is alluded to the fact that he is physically harming her. She commits suicide. We all know that. I'm not going to go into that super much. I will say, like, a lot of research into it because, you know, you can't help but have a fascination or curiosity, but I'm not going to share that here. So when Sylvia Plath passed away, her husband, who she was separated from at the time because he was having an affair, publishes Ariel, and he takes out a bunch of poems that he feels some type of way about. Let's just put it that way. Then he gets like all the money. He gets like all the money from the works that are of hers that are being published, and he's kind of, I don't want to say the sole owner of this work, but he's the one getting this income. And the woman that he was having an affair with, she was also a poet, and he had her move into the same house, like the exact same house that Sylvia Plath was living in before she passed away, the one where she passed away in, and he has a child with her, but he refuses to marry her. She's taking care of Hughes and Plath's children, so she's taking care of 3 kids in the same house. I would see like quotes everywhere, headlines essentially saying that like she was using the same stuff that Sylvia Plath had used, which like of course she was, you know, because I don't know, I don't imagine you can just redo a house that easily when you're on a poet's salary, even if you were famous in the 50s. So he starts stepping out on, and eventually kills herself in the same manner, and she also takes their child with her. I could only draw conclusions on that, and I wouldn't want to steer anyone away, but I just want to tell you about that. And Ted Hughes goes on to be like the poet laureate of the UK for like 30 years before he dies. I'm sorry, my feelings about this man are coming out. Birthday Letters, I think it's his collected poems. It's the one where he acknowledges Sylvia Plath, and I guess it's his most renowned work. Oh, and I also want to say, there was a book that Sylvia Plath was working on, and apparently its premise was a wife whose husband was stepping out on her and was physically abusive towards her. And when she passed away, we had that, and we had her final journals. And Ted Hughes lost both of those. And he said, I don't feel like my children should ever have to read that. Okay? That's what I would like to say. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm adding a lot of bias to this. I'm doing my best not to, but just even the information that has stuck with me, it stuck with me for a reason, you know, and I just want you to know what I just told you is biased. Do your own research before you decide to replicate this story. You know what I'm saying? But yeah. Ted Hughes has since passed away, I believe. And Sylvia Plath's son has also passed away. He also committed suicide, and I believe the last member of the family is Frida. And she wrote the foreword for this book, which I think is also what I guess got me interested in the family history, because of the things that Frida Hughes had to say in the foreword that really, I just was like, oh, okay. We're gonna start The Setting Sun, which will be the last book we read for this vlog together. What do I have to say about that? I want to give Dazai a fresh start. I think he, you know, I'm gonna do more background research into his history and life. This one has a female protagonist, so I'm excited about that. I want to go in with a fresh mind and keeping in mind that maybe I'll come across some misogynistic things, you know. Fun fact, Google Books has it for free. Not sure what that's about, but yeah. I hope you're still sticking along. This has truly been a journey. Sorry for looking busted and sorry for taking so long on this. But hey, what can I say? I'm stubborn and it'll get done. Okay, I'm much endeavored to finish this tonight. So I just finished the foreword and chapter 1. I already like this one much better than No Longer Human. I'm sorry to say that I do have a favorite right now. This one is translated once again by Donald Keene, who in the foreword once again told us all about how Japan is closely related to the West, and he gave some backstory on Dazai, who was a really bad student and had multiple S-word attempts. We've met our main character, Kazuko? She's 29 and she lives with her mother. Her father passed away 10 years ago, and her brother went off to war, and they have not heard anything about him, even though the war is now over. Basically, they have lost all their money, and so they moved from Tokyo into a cottage in the mountains, and there are these snakes that live around. I know the snakes are symbolic for something. We'll get there. Kuzuko is like, what does she say? She's feeling like there's a snake around her heart that's fattening. Okay, finished chapter 2. We're on page 52 now. And this chapter was called Fire because Kazuko started a fire by accident, and then they got news that her brother is actually alive. He's addicted to opium, and they will send him back when he's no longer addicted. But at the very end of this chapter, she says, our real hell began when he returned. So it's not looking good. She just had a really emotional conversation with her mom, who was like, you should get married or get, you know, a job. They used to be nobility, but I suppose they've fallen out due to modern times. They don't have the money they used to have, especially after the father passed away. And yeah, they are officially out of money now. I was listening to this playlist on Spotify. I like to do that. I like to see what other people have. Some people have a really bad playlist for these kinds of books, but this one was really good. Very atmospheric. Very short though. Kind of wish it was longer. Anyways, continuing reading. Okay, update. Just finished chapter 3. Okay, so Naoji, the brother, he's back. In the beginning, I was like, he sucks. And then we got to read his journals from the time that because he's an opioid addict. You know, at the time, back in the day, we didn't really know how to help people. She feels sympathy for him, and she told us, the reader, me, about her divorce and how, like, she actually really wasn't stepping out on him. This is what I got. She actually really wasn't stepping out on him, but that was the perception, and she'd bring it up when they were in an argument. And then her husband, like, didn't know if, when she got pregnant, if the kid was really hers, and then the kid was stillborn, and then she got sick, and then she wasn't married anymore. And to get Naoji not addicted to opium anymore, her and this guy named O'Hara, he was a writer and doesn't have the best reputation, get him to be an alcoholic instead. I appreciate the lines in this one much more. I'm not sure if it's because I like the translation better or if because the style of the writing is different in this one. Okay, do you recall very like 30 seconds ago when I said, oh yeah, Naoji has a friend who's an author and he's, you know, he is unscrupulous and he is like, yeah, we'll just cure him by making him an alcoholic. Well, that was 6 years ago, right? Well, she's writing letters to him and she's like, listen, just take me on as your lover and mistress. But it's not passionate love. And she's just trying to convince him as a way, like, getting them out, I suppose, of this. And she's like, listen, I can't leave my mom though. Just come here. She wrote him like 3-4 letters. He didn't respond to any of them. And she's like, also, could you bring my brother back with you? And she told him all about how this like old artist came and was like, listen, I'll marry you. And she's like, no. And he's like, you sure? And she's like, no. And the mom's like, yeah, sure, that's fine. Do whatever you want. And it feels very much like projecting onto this guy a lot. She calls him MC for my Chekhov. And then the very last letter, she says MC doesn't stand for my Chekhov. It stands for my child. Okay, next chapter. It's really, I don't like Naoji. I don't like the way he talks. Chapter 5 was really sad. Her mom has passed away now. The brother is just... Here's what I think is going on. I'm wondering if Dazai had... Because Yozo and the brother Naoji really remind me of one another. And I'm wondering if Dazai has imbued some of his flaws in life in Naoji. This is a really sad one. These lines are beautiful and cutting. I think I only have like 50 pages left, so let's do this. That was a beautiful chapter. She goes to Tokyo and after the mom has passed away, and she meets Uhara, and it's late at night and he's just drunk. And eventually they're alone together and she's like, so you read my letters? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, I love you too. But they're both just such sad people. And at first she had gone to his home and she met his wife, and his wife was wonderful, so kind. And when she leaves, she says she doesn't feel any guilt. And it's like, I don't want to say it's like watching a train wreck. It's just being dug and dug and dug, because everything that these characters do only reaffirms their own thoughts of the world. It's really beautiful though. I have 25 pages left. I think I'll stop talking about what happens in the plot, because after this it'll just be spoiler, oiler. You know what I'm saying? Guillotine, shoo. I read the final pages listening to Lonesome Down.
Okay, here we are. Final thoughts. Yes, I can't tell if I'm a more jazzier, more mysterious, cooler cat now having read these books, but they definitely opened my eyes to a lot of things. And the first thing I want to talk about is the translations of Dazai's works. I have no way of really knowing if they were effective translations or not, but from what I've learned of the translator, Donald King, it kind of feels like he was the first person to translate Dazai's works, and we were just like, okay, that's good enough. I know that there have been like maybe 1 or 2 translations since then, but I don't know. We just have so many translations of Anna Karenina, a much longer book. So I just hope that with time we'll get more and different translations of Dazai's works. Also, I don't even think that all of his works have been translated. So yeah, that'd be also something really cool that we as readers will hopefully get. Barring my initial distrust of Dazai's authorship due to the way that women were talked about in No Longer Human, I had an overall positive experience with Dazai's work. I think that he portrays loneliness and isolation in humans in this really tender way. In what he was talking about in his books, I weirdly enough felt less alone with my darker thoughts and feelings and loneliness. And I think that's always something that's just really powerful when you read anything. On Sylvia Plath, it was so much easier to find information about her because she was an American poet and she wrote in English and was popular in the Western world. So any information I really want about her is almost at my fingertips, you know? I will say that I was shocked with how much I really didn't know about Sylvia Plath. Like anything about her writing style, history, life, and as soon as I began interacting with her work, my perception of who she was changed completely. And maybe it's because I have TikTok brain rot, but I had an aesthetic associated with Plath that is different from the image that I have of her now and her work in my head. I think that the work that I clearly connected the most to is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I wish I could say it was anything beyond, you know, the obvious. But yeah, I mean, she just really hit the nail on the head for many, 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 many things that I get. Part of the rabbit hole that I went down when learning about Plath was the events following her death. And it feels like something that TikTokers would make scary voiceover conspiracy videos about, and yet I had to piece together all this information myself. I'm ashamed to say that it's been a while since I've had to do something like that because we're so lucky to have things like TikTok. The legend of Plath is rooted in her death and what happened after her death. And Dazai's own death, you know, adds to his like urban legendness. But I didn't find a lot on the impact of his death and the events following his death. I also want to say that Dazai published way more work than Sylvia Plath did in his life. And a lot of what I learned about Dazai, I kind of gleaned from really intensely researched Tumblr posts that I'm going to link in the description because, oh my gosh, people need to see those. I think I just want to conclude this reading vlog by saying, you know, part of the beauty of literature is it really can help us feel less alone in these dark emotions that we experience in life. These books made me grateful in a way to live in a modern time where mental illness and addiction are looked at differently than they were, you know, back in the day. If you yourself are struggling, I encourage you to reach out for help. Like I said, you know, like the beauty of literature is it helps us feel less alone in these dark negative feelings, but it can also at times be something that really spirals us even further when we're not in the right headspace. And I think one of the reasons it also took me so long to film and finish this video is because I kept taking long reading breaks in between each book because I had to breathe and I had to digest and I wanted to read something else that was calmer on the mind and emotions. I encourage anyone who wants to read these works to read these works. They're good. But, you know, please put yourself and your health first. This reading vlog has inspired me to put The Flowers of Buffoonery and The Journals of Sylvia Plath on my TBR. Maybe I'll get to them soon. Maybe I won't. I think that I want to own The Journals of Sylvia Plath so I can just go ahead and annotate them. Thank you so much for joining me on this vlog. If you made it to the end, gold star for you, my little starsy marsies. I hope that I inspired you to read any of these works. Let me know if you have read any of these works and what your opinions on them are. Thank you again if you made it to the end. You should subscribe. What can I say? It's like this fun all the time here on this channel. But yeah, thanks so much for joining me. Have a good time reading, and bye-bye. Bye-bye. For those of you that like to stay after and talk with teacher, I'll talk to you about my experience filming this reading vlog. This was, second reading vlog I've ever done. It took me a month, just about. Maybe like 3 weeks. Okay, so I'm exaggerating. But I'm nervous for the final product, but I also just really want it to get out there. You know what I'm saying? I don't imagine this video will do well because I've had to talk about the serious topics and issues in these books with that weird TikTok vernacular at times because I'm not completely sure what YouTube's censorship / demonetization policies are on these types of things. But yeah. Okay, bye.